Sorry, a few minutes late to this one. Welcome to another live Instagram training. Of course, we'll be saving it here on our feed for you to watch back. And this one is for those of you who are newly pregnant, whether it be for the first time or not, and how to survive trimester 1 and all the delightful symptoms that go along. A bit broader to other symptoms as well. Let's get Candice on. Oh, this stand has had enough. Hey, Candice.
Hello, how are we?
Good. I'm having setup problems, so I might just need to kind of hold a little bit, but that's all right. Thanks for joining us again. So we are excited to help some mums who might be in the trenches of trimester 1. Some of our favorite symptoms that come about, like nausea, food aversions, constipation, fatigue, just
all the fun.
all the favorites. And you just think, oh, pregnancy, this is really, if it's your first rodeo, you're just kind of a little bit shocked, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me a little bit about like the why. Like, why do we feel so awful in trimester 1? Why?
Yeah, so very good question. So I guess it can come definitely as a bit of a shock for a lot of women. And I will say there are some women who get absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. So that is always very interesting. And those women are very, very lucky indeed. But for those who do kind of get some symptoms, they'll get degrees of, like, some people will have it really, really awful, some people will just have a little, but it is really varied. And so I guess one of the main reasons that we do start to get all these pregnancy symptoms are really because of those hormonal changes that are happening in the body, and how everyone responds to that is a little bit different as well. And so our body is now producing these much higher levels of all of these hormones, which then have these follow-on effects into how things like our digestion work and our nervous system and all of those other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That progesterone, as I said before, I always say to my clients, before your placenta is like doing its full job, which everyone thinks is right away, but it's not. No. Progesterone, which stands for progestation. So for pregnancy, that hormone in that luteal phase is really a slowing down hormone. So it's going to slow down the rate of digestion and slow down everything. So that's why we can feel nauseous and constipated, because everything moving through the digestive tract really slows down. And of course, the fatigue and all that kind of stuff, it can really come down to the fact that you are literally building heaps of new organs, and the rapidity of the cell division in the first trimester is huge, and I think underestimated, because you don't visually look pregnant. It's not a very large baby yet. And I think that juxtaposition between how you look often and how you feel is so shocking. And in addition, I think it's exacerbated by the fact that a lot of people choose not to disclose that they're pregnant in the first trimester. So then you're also trying to almost like hide your symptoms, maybe from your boss or from your mum or from your in-laws or whatever. And that almost worsens it too, because then you're kind of like thinking about that. And
it's exhausting trying to hide all of those symptoms too. Yeah.
I know. I would just tell everyone straight away. That's my personality. I'm just like, I need as many concessions as possible for the fact that I will be spewing in your toilet bowl. So sorry. Oh dear. So also, I think the other issue that we commonly see as fertility and pregnancy dietitians is we're lucky enough to see a lot of people make that transition from preconception or IVF into trimester 1. And they're often really distressed and anxious about how their diet has changed so dramatically, because all of a sudden vegetables are disgusting. Why does water taste gross? I hate meat and fish now. Where do I get protein from? I just want to eat pasta and bread and rice and Weet-Bix and crackers. And how is my baby going to be nourished if I'm not eating the way that I know is probably ideal? And I guess it's that bridging that expectation and reality. So, what advice do you have for somebody who's in the first trimester who is maybe feeling a little bit worried about their dietary quality and how that may be impacting them or their baby in trimester one?
Yeah, so I guess like we're in a great position that, you know, when we've been working with people in the preconception phase, that we've been optimizing their nutrition for however many months prior to their pregnancy, because
Yeah.
we know once we get to trimester one, the likelihood that your diet quality is going to plummet is quite high, and we expect that. And so if we
Yep.
can go into pregnancy with everything optimized, then it means we've got everything that we need in reserve to make sure that they get all of the nutrients to support that growth and development. And that's like really essential. But I guess there'll be plenty of people that, you know, they may not have planned a pregnancy, or, you know, they haven't done any of that prior work, because, you know, when you're first thinking about having a baby, you might not be thinking about all of those things, and that's why we're always preaching how important it is. But I think you just need to roll with what you can manage, and that's really important. And there's probably like healthier versions of things that you can tolerate, which some of the things that we would be looking at going through. And I guess we don't know why, you know, some people experience morning sickness and some people don't. Some people have that extreme hyperemesis and most don't. But we do know that, you know, it's important that we keep eating to maintain our nutrition as best as possible, but you might not be getting all the diet quality in there necessarily. And so, you know, we focus on what we can get in to support energy and development. I'd definitely be looking at your pregnancy multivitamins and supplementation too. And that can help if you're able to get that down, to make sure that we're getting all of the micronutrients that are required, especially in that early phase of pregnancy too. So it can be very, very tricky to manage, but it is certainly possible to stay on top of it.
I think as well, like, it's a different standard that you're going to have to hold yourself to when you're preconception, and especially if this is your first, in hopes of having your first child here. I think as well, you've got that brain space and that opportunity and that additional motivation, and motivation is still there. And I think that's what drives the anxiety up. But the capacity of your body to deal with what your expectation is, and your motivation is just, it's a mismatch. And I think that's really where then the anxiety starts to really build. And so readjusting expectations, and like for me, like I'm normalizing a lot for people, like this is normal. You know, 80% of people are in this boat with you. They're surviving off crackers and popcorn and pasta and rice, and everything is fine. So like, do your best when you can, and survive the rest, and we can optimize later. And that's fine. And I think if the duration or the intensity of your symptoms is severe, in terms of the intensity of the nausea and vomiting is high, then of course we want to be seeking medical input, and you can seek medical input at any point in time, mind you. And in addition, the duration. So I would say to people, if by, you know, around 14 weeks, things are not improving significantly, we need to come up with a new plan, because now it's going to persist potentially into second trimester or maybe even third trimester. And that's going to compromise your intake over a much longer period of time. So that might mean we need to be thinking about different types of supplements. We need to be looking at different types of lab work. We need to be a little bit more clever with things. And I always say to people, trimester one, you've got to treat yourself like a toddler. Grate the veggies into the pasta sauce so they disintegrate, so you don't know that they're there. You know, have the popcorn and mix a few nuts in there. If you need to have fruit that's frozen because that's the only thing that tastes good to you right now, and it's always mango for the next 3 weeks, who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, it's fine, and just kind of rolling with that. And I think that that's really important, because you're not alone, and a lot of people have experienced the same as you. and you can get support. So my other question for you was, I was going to ask you your top tip for the three biggest trimester 1 problems we see. The first one is nausea, the second one is constipation, and the third one is food aversions. So feeling really turned off certain foods. So what's your top tip for nausea?
Yeah, so my top tip for nausea would be to try and make sure that you're getting in some carbohydrate-based food on a regular basis. So it might be small amounts of carbohydrate-based foods every 2 to 3 hours. So it might just be some crackers, it might be a slice of toast, it might be some mashed potato, it might be some pasta or some rice. Even if you can tolerate anything on that, then yep, certainly go for it, those types of things. So there's not a whole lot of research about it, but anecdotally and certainly from clinical experience, what we see is that people who have these longer gaps in between meals, and because they're not feeling well, they're not eating, that actually worsens their nausea. And so if we're able to keep our blood glucose levels stabilized with those carbohydrates regularly, that can assist with improving the nausea side of things for you. So, you don't want to overconsume in those, because overconsuming can then lead to vomiting, but small portions regularly throughout the day. Generally trying to include some sort of carbohydrate food is ideal. If you can get other things in as well, like some protein and some veg, if you're able to tolerate it, that's great. But just focus on those things that you know that you can keep down and manage is really important.
Awesome. What's your top tip for trimester 1 constipation?
Yeah, so there's probably 3 things that I would prioritize when it comes to constipation. So if we can think,
I'll let you expand to 3 tips, Candice. All right.
I think the 3, sort of like the triad of managing constipation, is your fiber, your fluid, and your physical activity. So it's trying to keep your body moving. It's trying to make sure you're drinking enough fluids to help flush things through, so that things are able to move through your digestive system easily, and then getting enough fiber, which is the bulk of the diet that's going to help to improve your digestion as well. So when we're talking about eating carbohydrate foods for nausea management, where we're able to choose more whole grain and more high fiber based options, that's going to be beneficial from a constipation point of view. And when we've taken out veggies, and sometimes we've taken out fruits and those types of things, we've taken out lots of those high fiber sources in our diet. So think about what are the high fiber things we can still get in there as well.
Yeah. So a whole grain or a higher fiber version of those starchy carbohydrates, where possible, leaving the skin on the potato if you're just eating in a potato mood. Potatoes seem to be a favourite in trimester 1. All the time. Just making those little tweaks, and if you're really stuck, you can start using things like fiber supplements and additional strategies that are considered safe for pregnancy. But certainly you want to work on that, because if it does persist, we've got consequences on things like pelvic floor function, risk of hemorrhoids. Not fun. So important to manage. All right, what's your tip on food aversions? So a lot of people are just turned off by foods that they would otherwise enjoy, and typically they're also very nutrient dense foods as well, like fish, meat, chicken, eggs, veggies. And sometimes they get more strange than that. But what is your kind of top tip in terms of food aversion management?
Yeah, look, I think food aversions, they're definitely one that you have to roll with. And, especially when they're our core foods, like if you just can't manage them, that is okay. Like sometimes the smell, the sight, the thought of the food, if that's making you gag, you're not going to be able to eat it and get it down. And so we've got to think that's okay. If that is persisting, as you said, beyond the first trimester, then we may need to look at what nutrients are we missing out on by not having this food, and then find some suitable replacements to make sure we're getting enough protein, we're getting enough vitamins, minerals, fiber, all those types of things as well. But with food aversions, definitely, if there's something you can't tolerate, that is okay. As you start to feel better, trying to reintroduce those foods is really important as well. And sometimes it can be a matter of like how something's cooked. So you may not be able to eat cooked egg, but you might be able to eat like a boiled egg mashed up into an egg sandwich type thing.
Yeah.
So foods that are cold, foods that don't smell as much, they tend to be a lot better tolerated. And so there's ways that we can still include them, but we just have to think about the preparation of them and how we're able to eat them. Of course, following all your pregnancy safe guidelines with that as well.
Yeah. I think cold foods is like the biggest hack. Like, let's tell people, I'm just like, just eat your leftovers cold. Like, just put your dinner in the fridge, let it go cold. It'll have less smell, less taste. Making, you know, yogurt pops with fruit blended in, having that after dinner would be a low glycemic index snack for the evening. Like, those little things, they're small. And you know what, honestly, the biggest thing that I see with pregnant women who are really symptomatic at any point in pregnancy, it's like your brain cannot think of these ideas. It's like, and sometimes like the strategies we're giving are simple and they're just suggestions. And you just think, oh my God, like, well, that's so boring and basic. But there's something about when you're pregnant that you just like, you cannot compute these things. You're just like, the only thing that sounds good to me is another Jack's cracker. Like, I can't deal with any of the thoughts. And so just getting you to like slowly, oh yeah, that does sound good. I might try that. Or, that sounds really bad to me. Like, it's easier then to kind of start to flag different things and kind of go from there. So yeah, food aversion is a tricky one. I have seen, and this is probably not so common, but I have seen food aversions that persist into postpartum, and I reckon that that's probably like the most extreme version I've seen, where like women are like, I'm never eating chicken again. It made me spew one time, won't do it. So, you know, if that's the case, certainly like definitely get some help around that, because you definitely don't want to be missing out on variety and key nutrients and all that stuff. And sometimes we do have to be a little bit strategic, either with other foods if you're able to tolerate them, or in some circumstances you're not, and we have to supplement. So ultimately, just survive, thrive later. Key message. Any other last tips for our listeners, viewers, Candice, on trimester 1 before we wrap up?
Look, I think if you're struggling, like, don't be afraid to reach out and get some help from someone, because you know, a lot of these things, they're hard, they're challenging. You might not be seeking any support in that area, but don't be afraid to advocate for yourself with your medical team as well. Sometimes they're a bit reluctant to intervene and help out with your symptoms, but you know, when they are severe and they're compromising your nutrition, you certainly should. And yeah, if you need some support, you know, on the pregnancy front at any stage of your pregnancy or preconception, it's certainly reach out to us if you do need anything. We are more than happy to help and have lots of experience in sort of the practical strategies, which I think is really, you know, really important. And they're practical strategies that are backed by sort of the scientific evidence and the clinical experience of it too. So that's really important.
Yes, and I will also reference that Candice and I a few months ago did a separate live on hyperemesis gravidarum, which Candice also has personal experience and professional experience with. So I will also share that to stories after this one goes up, because if you are on that more severe spectrum, obviously things like, you know, small frequent meals and having ginger isn't going to cut it. So it is a kind of different ball game altogether. So we do appreciate that differentiation and have kind of tried to cater for that as well. But yeah, definitely do reach out for support. It's not silly just because lots of other people have experienced it and got through it, or your mum saying, yeah, that was the same as me, like it's fine, doesn't mean that. It really, I find it really impacts people's mental state, because they're unable to participate in their life in their usual way, and it's a really big shock to the system. So please do reach out for support so we can prop you up and feel as good as you possibly can in trimester 1 and throughout the rest of your pregnancy. All right, I got to let Candice go because she's got a busy rest of her day with client consults in clinic. But thanks for joining us live, everyone. Or if you're catching the replay, leave us your comments and we'll see you soon. Bye everyone. Bye, Candice.